Hello everybody and welcome back to the Fintech Times. We're here at Sibos 2022, which is in lovely Amsterdam. Despite the rain this afternoon, it's still just as lovely. Today I'm joined by Khaled from WadzPay. Khaled, how are you?
Hi Taylor, thank you very much for having me today.
Well, thank you very much for joining us. It's a pleasure to speak to you and to speak to your company about some very exciting topics we've got planned for our discussion today. But before we get on to that discussion, why don't you tell our audience just about who you are and a bit about what WadzPay does?
Sure. So my name is Khaled Moharem and I've been in the payment industry for almost 30 years now. I am actually former Swift employee. I worked with them for 10 years. So I feel like home being in Sibos. If I'm not mistaken, this is my 7th Sibos to attend. So it's great to be here with all of you. WadzPay, very quickly, is a technology provider. So we enable banks to play a role within the digital assets in ecosystem. When it's issuance, acquiring, CBDC or remittance.
Fantastic. Well, digital assets are a very, very big topic here in finance today, and definitely an area that a lot more players in the industry are venturing into. In just under 24 hours, WadzPay is going to be taking over the Discover stage to actually talk about that very topic, about payments in the Metaverse. Can you maybe give us a little bit of a highlight about what the company is hoping to discuss?
Sure. I think we all follow what's happening within the Metaverse, and it is debatable to say, is it experimental or an implementation? I think we see some good use cases happening today in the market, and payment is crucial for any process platform. So payments is a major role when it comes to the Metaverse, because you might play a game or enter a party or any type of use case. Somehow a payment has to be linked to that. So what we are going to discuss is basically what is the Metaverse today, how we see it evolving for tomorrow, the future, and how banks can simply enter through less footprint, API solution, cloud-based, fast to the market, and enter to play a role within the Metaverse when it comes to the payments itself.
That's really, really exciting, and I'll sure to have a front row seat tomorrow. I've actually kept the space free just to hear the discussion, so it should be very, very exciting. But thank you for that little insight. I won't share that with anybody before the talk tomorrow. You mentioned about the Metaverse, and of course it's going to be a central theme in your talk tomorrow. In terms of, obviously, it's a very new sort of form of technology. A couple of people are slightly on the fence about it, I reckon. What do you see as being the really sort of practical uses of the Metaverse? You know, something that you could only do with inside the Metaverse that wouldn't make sense to do in a practical world? And more importantly, how do payments come into that?
I think so far the use case have been focused on gaming. So you see that the majority of the gamers, they spend a lot of time in a virtual platform, call it Metaverse or whatever you would like to, but eventually it's a digital platform that people do meet, they compete with each other and play games. To play a game, you need to do a payment. When you win a game, you also receive a payment. If you want to attend an event, as an example, like it happened very recently, and it was the first of a kind concert by very two largest famous Arab singers in the Metaverse. So this was a new thing happening in the Middle East. And I think it's very interesting because the youth love to play a part in this and attend such conference. Again, for a conference, you have to pay for a ticket in the normal life. Same when it's on a Metaverse, you need to have a payment tool to do that. And I believe once we enter to the Metaverse, the evolving or the dream that everybody want to reach to, then payment, because it's just duplicate your reality of life, going to a grocery or a shopping mall, to have all of that in a virtual world. And money need to be part of that, so payments have to be part of that, so enabling the grocery, the e-commerce, etc., to have the payment leg attached to that.
So when we look at more traditional forms of payments, we look at things like checks or bank transfers or cash, even the use of cash. But now we're seeing sort of this shift away. I realize that WadzPay is very involved in digital assets, CBDCs, as you mentioned in the beginning. Why do you think such a shift away from these really traditional, almost trusted payment networks is happening? And then on top of that, which form of digital asset do you see is coming into widespread use first?
I think if we look at the past few years, we have moved from the traditional fiat, the cash environment to more of a digital. Yeah. Thanks to the pandemic and the COVID, e-commerce have grown in 5x, 10x within the retail environment itself. People find it more friendly not to visit a bank, but just open an account today from your mobile. So all what you need is a mobile and internet, and you have your banking account, and you have a digital money to use, whichever name you want to call it, e-wallet, Apple Pay, whatever it is. So the technology is evolving to ease up people's life, not to go stand in a lines, wait for a few hours, apply with many documents, and wait for days till you have your own account. I think blockchain is even enabling that in a more faster way, in a more trusted environment, because it's decentralized. So risk of fraud or double payment, etc., does not happen in the blockchain. And the technology itself enable a friction of the cost when you do remittance, as an example. So it's a friction of a cent, instant payment. And when you mentioned the digital currencies itself, I see stable coin, which is back to a reserve, dollar like USDT, USDC, and many others equivalent to that, is a brilliant use case when it comes to corridors, because you want to have a stable FX, the exchange rate does not fluctuate, so that's fixed the rate and then it goes. The other thing which we need to realize today, that this is an industry of multi-billion dollars. Regardless you like the digital asset or you don't like it, people are investing in digital asset. You see the last few months it's going down, but people are investing, and the curve goes like that for the past years too. It's not the first time that we see Bitcoin going down. But since it's driven by the market demand and the technology have a use case, I think it will be the tomorrow norm to be used.
Fantastic. Well, what an exciting prediction. In terms of your regional footprint on WadzPay, you're obviously very globally ambitious, and you're operating mainly in, and correct me if I'm wrong, but South Asia, APAC, that sort of area, in the Middle East and Africa, right? Are there any projects in that area that you're particularly excited about? And as well, on top of that, which region is leading the way?
Yeah. So you're absolutely correct. So we have offices around APAC, Middle East and Africa, and we just announced that we are opening 2 offices in the United States very soon. Yeah. So this will happen before the year end, hopefully, or max by Q1. From a region perspective, I think the 3 regions, which is the APAC, African and the Middle East, are very interesting projects. So in Africa, I was mentioning to you that we are doing a tokenization. Yes. for minerals services. In the Middle East, there is the Sharia compliant project that we are working on, which is actually multi-corridors from a geography perspective. We are seeing also a lot of interest from banks when it comes for the acquiring, the acceptance of payments by digital assets or issuance, which enable their customers, which is a KYC customers, source of fund is known to the bank, to play a role and buy and sell digital asset through a banking environment or a regulated environment. I think banks here can play a major role to help bring regulation to this industry. And again, I wouldn't like to repeat much, but this is a multi-trillion dollar industry, and it's outside of the financial community. It has to become back to the financial community. And I think that's what we are trying to do by providing an easy technology for the banks to enter this impressive zone.
Oh, well, fantastic. And if I'm not wrong in thinking, you're headquartered in Singapore. Is that right? Now, I'm just really interested in Singapore's position on central bank digital currencies at the moment, because they are moving away from retail CBDC and more towards wholesale CBDC. If my sources were correct, which I hope they are. What is WadzPay's position within that sort of development in Singapore?
I think today there is more than 80 central banks who are investigating the implementation of CBDC, retail or wholesale. Again, that's another debatable topic that can go for very long. But there is few banks who took initial steps, like Singapore as an example, MAS have done. UAE Central Bank is already getting involved in a project on CBDC and they're testing it. Central Bank of Bahrain have already regulated the digital asset and there is license. And I think between UAE and Bahrain, they're becoming more of an attractive hub for everybody who work within the blockchain industry to have a regional office over there, because somehow there is a regulation in place which help operation. CBDC will be necessity to drive everything else. There is some challenges within the CBDC like interoperability. So you might issue country A CBDC, but how this money will be accepted in country B. So the enablement of the interoperability make a lot of sense. Somebody need to build these bridges, which we are trying to bring to the market to ease the acceptance of CBDC in different countries and different regions, and this get involved with the settlements too between two central banks, etc., etc. So, but it will be a major driver and a major push for regulations to come in place more clearly, and also the usage of it when it comes to the retail payment.
And WadzPay is sort of right in the center of that journey towards becoming a real practical, usable source of money. So I think it's
I think what we bring to the table is the technology, which is agile. Most importantly, it's scalable, because this is a very tricky from an IT perspective, because when you build up a plan, you want to build up a plan also when it's scaled, when the volume grow. If your platform is not scalable, you end up to crash.
Yes, yeah.
So it has to be agile, it have to be scalable, and it have to be interoperable, so it can be accepted in multiple points, not only a single point. And I think that's what we are trying to bring to the market.
Well, that's really, really fantastic. One final question for you, Khaled, is what are you looking forward to the most at Sibos this year? Apart from the discussion tomorrow, of course.
Yeah. For me, Sibos is not only home, but it's a great event. And that's the great thing about Swift. Swift is a community organization. It brings community together. So I don't see any place else in the world which have 8,000 participants from the financial industry under one roof. It's very hectic. You usually go home, you lose 2-3 shoes, get destroyed, blisters on your feet. But the amount of meeting you do at Sibos is unbelievable. The amount of knowledge gain, because you see all the experts, the panels, the discussion happening, etc. So the amount of knowledge you gain from Sibos is priceless.
Oh, well, fantastic. And what an insightful conversation this has been, and hugely conveyed the importance of digital currencies, and especially CBDC is always exciting. Lots of great projects on the table. But thank you so much for joining us today, Khaled. It's been a wonderful conversation.
Thanks again, Taylor.
I hope that we'll have more time to catch up again soon. I mean, we're only on day 1 so far, so yeah, definitely catch up again soon.
And we'll see you on the stage tomorrow.
Yes, you will.
Absolutely.
Yes.